I'm sorry. What was your name?
It's Andrea.
Okay, so I wanted to concentrate because I don't want to keep going through this. I wanted to see, is there a way that we can figure out why they've told me that they were full for years, almost like 4 or 5?
Well, we are currently full at the moment. This is a smaller domestic violence shelter. There's
What's the name of it?
Rooms up there.
What's the name of it?
This is Genesis Women's Shelter.
And you're full now?
Yes, ma'am. We are full at the moment. And it's a first come, first serve. So
They've said that for almost 5 years. So can I ask a question?
Of course.
And are you concerned about why the employee stated that I was recording when I wasn't, when I came in person? Because I didn't know who I was talking to on the phone. So I came in person, and then she said I was recording, and a church member said I was recording when I wasn't. How would they even know about me recording, and why would that help? If I'm recording, why would that make you force me to be in jeopardy for recording?
Well, I'm not concerned about that you were recording or not recording.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of why I've had to be in domestic violence crisis for 5 years. That's what my concern. And why all domestic violence locations deprived me of services for 5 years, and I'm currently in jeopardy and got threatened 2 times yesterday. And for some kind of reason, Genesis forgot. I'm sorry, ma'am. For some reason, Genesis forgot. Even if you are full, there's all kinds of other services that could be offered.
Of course. And I was just going to offer you some of those services.
Sure.
Are you currently in the Dallas area?
Yes.
Okay, and you're seeking domestic violence housing and support?
Right.
Okay. Just one moment.
Yeah, for 5 years, I'm not being heard. For 5 years.
No, I was going to give you some more resources.
I'm not being heard. For 5 years, can I tell you? For 5 years, I call an organization, and once they place, I'll go all for 5 years. So what happens at each location, they deny me services. I call Genesis, and I'm not quite sure why Genesis, as well as all domestic violence locations, refer me to another place to not get services. That's kind of abusive.
Now, are they denying you?
I'm not being heard, ma'am. I'm not being heard. I'm not being heard, ma'am. What was your name again?
It's Andrea.
Andrea, the problem of it is I call Genesis. I call Genesis for help and services. You're denying them like all the places have done for years. Why would you mistreat me and deny me all the help from Genesis and say I'm not going to help you down low, undercover, and refer me when you...
No, so we don't deny services.
You're denying it. I call Genesis. I'm not asking, ma'am, I'm not being heard for 5 years. I'm not asking for other resources.
We can complete a shelter eligibility.
Ma'am, I think that you guys are crooked. I think that someone is controlling my experience and keeping me in the domestic violence crisis for all this time. I think you're being dishonest. And there was someone also in court, came into my environment and had this lady lie and con and say that I was recording when I wasn't, like at church, and schemes to prevent me from getting help to escape my crisis, as they've been doing 5 years.
I'm not concerned about that right there.
I'm not being heard, ma'am, because I called Genesis, as I've called for like 4 or 5 years. I'm not, and nothing has ever been offered at Genesis, as well as almost all organizations. None of them had a avenue to say. All of them sabotaged my assistance. All of them that I've ever been to.
I'm so sorry to hear that. So it sounds like you probably already do have the names and phone numbers of a lot of the shelters in the area. If you would like.
So basically, you're saying that you're not going to help me get out my domestic violence crisis, period, as Genesis.
No, of course not. I'm trying to help you right now.
I said Genesis, your services, I'm not being heard. Your services that I've been deprived of all this time. You have not given me nothing, a bus pass, a hug, love, support, nothing. Period, for almost 5 years.
I'm so sorry that you're feeling
Yes, so
like
I'm not being heard. I called Genesis, and I want to concentrate. Ma'am, I've already had the other resources. I like to concentrate on what Genesis can do, not refer me to someplace else like I've had to endure this abuse. It's abusive.
We do have an outreach center. If you're interested in that. I can give you the name and the phone number, and you can call and schedule an appointment with them, and you can schedule an appointment for counseling and for advocacy. Is that something you'd be interested
Here's the problem, ma'am. I've already done that, and she lied and said I was recording, trying to set me up in a scheme to deprive me of getting help, like the social worker scammed the other day, so I couldn't get help. So I don't know what kind of position that would. I don't want to continue to be in this crisis. I can't stay keep continuing.
In addition to the domestic violence shelters, there's also some transitional housing options in the Dallas area. You may not have heard of those yet.
Okay, what are those?
And then, okay, I'll give you the names and phone numbers. Do you have a pen and paper?
I do.
Okay. So, is it just you or do you have a family?
I'm not allowed around my family. We're not allowed law enforcement, so it's just me right now.
Okay.
But you have legal, right? You have legal because crimes are obvious. It's obvious crimes. Don't you have legal?
I can provide you with some legal assistance options.
Okay, what are those?
Subsidized legal assistance, free legal hotlines, and legal information. But before I...
The legal? Okay, just real quick. The legal, because we're on that topic.
Okay.
What's the options for legal?
So there's subsidized legal assistance, as in they provide legal assistance, but you'd have to pay a fee.
Okay.
Then there's free legal hotlines, and then legal information. So if you're just seeking information about a specific topic.
Oh, I wanted to know what Genesis could do with legal.
Yes, I can provide you these legal assistance options.
Oh, okay. This is what all places are doing, ma'am. So here's the thing. I have some really amazing legal things that would incriminate a lot of people if I had an attorney. So here's the kicker, though. I was at the family court, okay? And I had to speak with people because you run into so many con artists. There was a lady there, she was a lawyer, and I tried to get her information. She said that I would have to go through Genesis because she worked for Genesis. But Genesis, when they lie to me, when I talk to them and in person and over the phone, they con and force me to go to other places and lie about the legal representation they offer to women fleeing, because government officials would rack up a lot of felonies if I get an attorney. So then they have all these locations lie like you just did, but I met an attorney.
I'm so sorry, I did not tell any stories. I'm giving you all the resources that I can.
But you have legal assistance there at Genesis?
Don't have any shelter available.
You did lie because you have Genesis.
Actually, if you contact...
Ma'am, we're deflecting on the legal assistance. I asked for legal. We're deflecting.
Yes. To get to legal and to get legal.
You have legal assistance there at Genesis. You have legal assistance there at Genesis.
Yes, I believe we do, and I believe that to get connected to those legal services, you'll have to contact our Genesis Women's Outreach.
Okay, so for the transitional housing.
Okay, I can give you that information as well.
Okay.
Did you want to take the Genesis Women's Outreach information for the legal?
I don't know what to do because they were scamming, so I couldn't get services. I reported it to the police, and they're behind it, so they want to investigate it. But conspiracy to violate rights happens to be criminal, and it's obvious that's what's happening to me. And multiple parties lie and scam, so I can't get services. This is very rude, as it's been 5 years. Because I'm fleeing a domestic violence crisis and I'm telling you what I'm going through, and you're talking over it as if you're covering for it, like they've done for a long time.
I'm not trying to talk over you. I'm trying to give you some resources.
But I mean, if I'm in a domestic violence crisis and you won't let me tell you about it, as well as church members and everywhere else I go, and even at the hotel when they threatened the police, when I was trying to be safe at their hotel, I told them the police was behind my abuse at the Sheraton, and he threatened the police. I said, why would you threaten the police if I'm telling you they're behind it? So he was covering for the police and threatened to call them because I was telling them that my abuse was so amazing that police were behind it. And he said, I'm going to call the police to shut me up from telling people that. But nonetheless, ma'am, so the transitional housing?
Okay, yeah, the transitional housing. How old are you?
People keep asking me that here lately. The transitional housing is based on your age?
There's a few options, but this particular place, they only take women that are 18 to 24.
That wouldn't be me.
Okay, let me keep going. Do you live in Collin County?
I call Dallas.
Okay, so You can try Emily's Place.
This is
Their
transition.
phone number.
This is transitional housing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do they do?
It's just a transitional housing option. I don't know the specifics of their program, but I have their phone numbers.
Okay, so ma'am, for 5 years. Ma'am, for 5 years. So you giving me a number and you don't want me to know what they're doing there. Will you want me to have no clue? Ma'am, I'm just trying to get clarity. You're being rude again. Like all locations I've called for 5 years and in person. Okay, so what I've had to experience fleeing my dangerous domestic violence crisis that involves the government and law enforcement. People are bullying me, mistreat me, and violate me for trying to get out of it. And refer me over to other locations. So Emily's Place, if you don't know what these places are supposed to give me and you con me and out of services, of knowledge of the services, it's not going to be beneficial like it hasn't been 5 years. So Emily's Place, you're not sure what kind of housing it is, but you said it was transitional and you don't know what they do.
They provide transitional housing to domestic violence victims. That's what they do.
Is it their own apartment? Is it their own apartment? Is it a shelter?
Let's look it up online.
Because, the advocates really aren't informed around me. Like you weren't aware that you had your own... You're interrupting evidence, ma'am, again. You weren't aware that you had your own attorneys there for women fleeing. And we're not once again, ma'am, you're interrupting the abuse I've experienced. That's very rude for you to interrupt someone fleeing a dangerous domestic violence crisis, as all parties have done. So what I was trying to let you inform you of, I'm not being heard because I'm asking what Genesis can offer, but you're denying me services. Just giving me referrals is not.
You with some resources.
That's not services, ma'am, because you offer a lot. Let me tell you what you're supposed to be offering, like I've had to do.
We do offer a lot, and you can get connected to all the resources that we offer for women.
But this is a crisis hotline. You're not giving me any education on what you offer, and they won't do it either. I've called them. You guys all lie and con and sabotage assistance, like you're doing now.
Ma'am,
and you've been full for 4 or 5 years.
Ma'am.
Ma'am, we're still deflecting, ma'am. We're still deflecting.
I have to keep the line open. This is a hotline.
Okay, so basically you're saying that you're not going to give me service because I'm trying to redirect you back to what what Genesis does. But you're referring me over to a lot of other people. So I'm trying to redirect you. I know, but I'm not being heard, ma'am. I'm not being heard. I'm trying to redirect you because this has went on 5 years. I'm trying to redirect you because I want to know what Genesis does. I just don't want the resources to other locations. I've had to endure this 5 years. I want to know what Genesis does before you send me over to someone else.
You want me to tell you? I can definitely tell you what Genesis does.
Okay.
So, we do have a shelter, but at the moment our shelter
it's been full for like 4 or 5 years.
For domestic violence victims that are not able to get into our shelter because it's full, if they're not wanting, if you're not wanting to be recommended to any of the other options we have, or receive any referrals to any other places, the only other thing that I can offer you is our Genesis Women's Outreach. And you have said that you do not want to contact me.
I'm not being heard, ma'am. I'm just trying to hope that it's somehow, I just think it's really sick. So you're refusing to tell me like you've been doing 4 or 5 years what you offer there. So you're claiming now with your con, the only way that you can figure out what happened, how you get service and what services Genesis offer is to call the outreach because you don't know. And you're advocate on the crisis hotline.
Genesis Outreach is...
But so on the crisis hotline, you have no clue what Genesis offers, and I have to call outreach. And you don't want to get online and figure it out, and you're a crisis counselor, an advocate.
I'm telling you that what Genesis offers is outreach. I'm not referring.
Yeah, but outreach is that's very vague and abusive, ma'am. If I'm fleeing a domestic violence crisis, I like more details on what you offer, and I've been abused and violated like this for years.
So after you contact outreach.
Okay, so basically what you're saying on the crisis, you're denying me services on the crisis hotline. That's what you're saying. On the crisis
That's not
hotline, you're
something.
refusing to tell me. I repetitively have been asking you for 4 or 5 years what you do. You lied about legal, and you're depriving me of the right to know what Genesis does to help women flee abuse and all the other things. You didn't say anything about a protection order. You lied about legal. They have not given me anything. And then you tried to con that you had to give me other referrals.
You can contact Genesis Women's.
But I'm on the crisis hotline right now, ma'am, and you're denying me services on the crisis hotline. This is the crisis hotline.
Yes, the purpose of the crisis hotline is to do intakes to shelter if we do have shelter. And then if we don't have shelter, it is to connect you to other resources.
You're supposed to set up a safety plan, inform me about protection orders, all kinds of different things for women in imminent danger. You're not doing any of that. You're not being honest. So for 4 or 5 years, people have been conning me in schemes to deprive me of services and assistance to flee something that's dangerous. I'm just trying to obtain enough evidence so it could end. You're not being honest on the emergency crisis hotline, as they were not in person. And I'm trying to get down to the bottom of why I'm forced to be in abuse and tortured like this, and nobody's reckoning up these charges for the conspiracy to violate rights crimes.
Would you like to be connected to my manager?
I don't know. I don't know if you're, when I came in person, it was a con. So you said something about Emily's Place. You wouldn't look online to see what you do there. You're still not looking online.
I'm looking online at Emily's Place right now.
But I'm asking for Genesis, not Emily Place.
You just asked for Emily's Place.
Right, but I'm asking for Genesis first. And you're not looking online to see what you do there. And I don't know why you wouldn't be educated on how you help women flee abuse. And while you're depriving me of a safety plan and arguing with me and mistreating me, trying to flee like everyone has done ever since I've been in this crisis, even at church.
Would you like for me to reiterate what we do here at Genesis and what the purpose of hotline?
At each section, you didn't say anything about protection orders and how you assist. You didn't say anything about police accompaniment. You didn't say how you call and make sure that the police are investigating the reports. Advocacy, case management, you didn't say anything about that. You didn't say anything about a job placement, anything like that, clothes, help, support, and nothing like that. And I've never received it.
Would it be okay if I transfer you over to my manager? Because
I just wanted to obtain evidence, ma'am, because I know that the very, very imperative thing for this con for 4 or 5 years, I'm not going to get it until people go to prison. I have not received it. There's government officials, law enforcement getting involved, enforcing that my life stay in jeopardy. I can't, there's things that I have to go do. It's not even safe for me to use transit. I can't go catch the bus right now. Because I don't know how many people will set me up. I have to see a police officer average of maybe 3 or 4 times a day at least in these cons. So, I'm not safe. So, like I said, I barely have had any sleep. So, but anyway, I'm just forced to be in the abuse. If you're not going to give me the services and you keep conning with no consequences, I don't think things will change until people go to jail. And it hasn't changed in 4 or 5 years.
I am so sorry to hear about that. Did you want me to provide you with any phone numbers, or did you want to be transferred to the manager before I hang up?
I don't know. You can transfer to the manager just, for evidence. Let's go ahead and see what the manager has to say.
I'll put you on a brief hold, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
So each time I'm in this situation and I have a nest egg saved, they con and make me spend up all my money. Because they don't want me having that leverage to have those funds. Yeah, I've had to endure this a lot for 5 years. I'm a saver. And they know it, and they force me to spend all my funds, wipe it out. Maybe when all my funds are wiped out, they'll let me get shelter. They're blacklisting me under wraps. So while I'm on hold, this is just venting. This, I get a lot of criticism, and I don't know what people are in and out and listen. But this is very, very traumatic, and it does a lot of psychological damage. And, I have been deprived of a support system. I've tried to get therapy, and I guess I'm just making excuses for myself. This is a very vulnerable experience. You want to talk to someone, you want to get love and support, you want help to figure things out, and forced into isolation. This extreme isolation is torture. Just no kids around, no family members, no church members. The government's enforcing that you stay alone. You saw, I'm going to put in the feed on the bus. They enforce that I don't meet new people, abuse their power. At these restaurants, they're told not to talk to me. Then even meeting people, I don't know how they do it. So I just can't meet people. So like I was trying to give all those people outside my YouTube channel and no one wanted it. How in the world do they control environments? Even meeting strangers. I just don't get how they do it. So they enforce that I stay alone and tormented in this abuse.
Hi, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and transfer you over to her line right now. They will not be back until Monday.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. So you had me on hold all that time in your con. All that time. And then you told me they were holding for your supervisor. I've had to endure this chaos years. So all that time.
I'm going to go ahead and transfer you over to our manager so that you can leave a voicemail. And if you want to call back and take down some phone numbers for some services.
So you're refusing any kind of help on this emergency crisis hotline. You're refusing any kind of help. She transferred. They've been torturing me like this for a long time. He's infuriated. How dare you try to get help to get away from me? So they are very abusive, even the police department. They don't call me back. What's the point?